Greetings, and welcome to my channel. I'm the Anunnaki Theorist. I want to wish everyone a happy holidays. Now, I say happy holidays as opposed to happy anything else, not because I'm trying to be PC. I'm not trying to, keep from offending anyone or anything like that. Because frankly, I couldn't care less. No, the reason why I say happy holidays is because during this season, there is so many holidays that are roughly the same theme that are celebrated at roughly the same time. So instead of worrying about, trying not to offend someone, and that's the reason why you use the term happy holidays, look at it as you are acknowledging that there are many cultures in this world, and each one has their version of whatever the holiday is that they would be celebrating at this time of the year. And instead of, the unwieldy, Merry Christmas, or Happy Hanukkah, or Merry Yule, or Saturnalia, or Kwanzaa, or Epiphany, all these holidays that are celebrated this time of the year, instead of having to, go through each and individual one, you just say, Happy Holidays. Okay, so as the title of this video states, I am going to talk about what I call the greatest story never told. Now, a lot of people, they understand the idea of the greatest story ever told was supposed to be the birth of Jesus. But the greatest story never told would be essentially an event that was because of the greatest story ever told, but we're not really given any information as to this other event, why it took place. Now, at the beginning of the video, you heard the song and you seen the background image. So what I'm actually going to be talking about is the wise men. Those individuals that came from the east to witness the birth of Jesus. Well, okay, so we're going to come in here to Matthew 2:1, and I'm using the Septuagint. And it says, Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. Okay, that's the English translation. It says wise men. But when we come down here into the actual Greek, the word that they use is magi. Now, it is thought that magi could be the equivalent of a wise man or a wise person or anything like that. But another thing that the magi is actually the name that is given to a priest of the Zoroastrian faith. So if these wise men were actually magi, now those that have watched my Ascended Masters video and have watched my Incarnations of Thoth video you might actually already start seeing what I'm talking about here. Okay, so Zoroastrianism was the primary religion of what would, at this point in time and during, in the biblical times, Persia, modern day Iran. So that would be east of Jerusalem. So these magi are coming to witness the birth of, well, as they say down here in Matthew 2:2, the King of the Jews. The question that I would be asking is, why would they care that the King of the Jews was going to be born? Well, here's where we have to ask a question. Does the Zoroastrians believe in reincarnation? Now, I've found a lot of conflicting beliefs, but the general consensus is that no, they do not. But we have this article, and I guess this individual is trying to basically go into the Zoroastrian texts and to determine, one way or another, did they believe in reincarnation. And of course, you've got different scholars and your ancient wisdom keepers and things like that, that they have told us different things that almost sounds as if, there is at least a form of reincarnation believed. But the whole idea of, somebody dying long time ago and then being reborn as another person, like I said, the general consensus is that no, they did not believe in reincarnation. So this would have been if well, where I'm going with this, let me stop getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so one of the things that we have to understand is that Zoroastrians are astrologers. In fact, it says down here that classical Hellenic texts make Zoroaster, which Zoroaster was the founder of the Zoroastrianism, was the inventor of astrology. So the Magi would have been astrologers themselves. So the way that I see it is, if they were basically doing their star charts, they were looking at the stars, they were determining essentially future events and things like this. One of the things that they may have come across is that this great event, that the founder of their religion was going to be reincarnated. Now, whether or not they actually believed in reincarnation, this would have piqued their interest. So they continued to pore over their star charts and everything, and eventually they came up with a map, a star map. Now, I know here, it says that they followed a star. Okay. A lot of experts in the texts, and then of course you've got your astronomers and things like this. They've asked, well, what is the Star of Bethlehem? What star shines brighter than any other star in the sky at that particular point in time that isn't there now? Well, there's some that believe that the Star of Bethlehem could have been a comet. Then we get into this. And this is a video by the Ancient Astronaut Archive. I'm not going to play it. I'm going to let you go ahead and watch it if you so desire. But in this, it gets further into the video. It's suggested that that star may have been Nibiru. Of course, if that's the case, then we have to throw all of the calculations and everything out by Zecharia Sitchin. Because according to Zecharia Sitchin's calculations, the last time that Nibiru would have been in our skies, would have been seen as a star, was roughly around the time of the Jewish exile, when the Hebrews were taken from Jerusalem back to Babylon. It was roughly around that time. But this talks about an individual known as Lloyd Pye, and he kind of redoes the calculations, and he said that, you know, the Star of Bethlehem could have been Nibiru. But there are two other explanations, and I see it as these two other explanations as the explanations that make the most sense. First of all, this talks about, this part of the article, or the video, actually talks about that the Star of Bethlehem was not necessarily a single star, but it was an alignment. Now remember, the Magi are astrologers, so alignments and conjunctions and things like this would be something that they would be big into. So the idea that this alignment took place, and when it says that they followed a star, wasn't necessarily a single star. It was this star map that they came up with through reading their star charts. Okay, there is one other thing, and I think it would be kind of in conjunction with the idea of the star map. They would have followed the star map to a certain point. Now, it states that there was an angel present at the time of Jesus' birth. Angels are not necessarily ethereal, divine, other dimension beings. They're more than likely flesh and blood. And if we look at an angel as one of the Anunnaki, not necessarily one of the higher ups, but a mid-level Anunnaki, then that being, that Anunnaki, would need a way to leave when all things were done. So, if the Magi were following this star chart to basically get them to Jerusalem, and then once they got there, another quote-unquote star that moved and hovered above the place where Jesus was going to be born, this was probably a UFO, a flying saucer, one of the spacecraft that the Anunnaki would have used. And of course, like I said, the angel would have been the Anunnaki, and then after his job was done, he'd have to have a way to get out of there, so he would have been, for lack of a better term, beamed up to the spaceship and taken away. So, we have the Magi, which are priests of Zoroaster, of the Zoroastrian belief, that are essentially told either by an angel or through their star charts, which I think is more likely. They're told that Zoroaster is going to be reborn. Whether they believed in reincarnation or not, they were going to send representatives to find out if this was true. So they followed the star map, which is something they would have been able to glean from their various star charts doing their astrology. Then once they got to Jerusalem, a UFO, which was glowing, looked like a star, would have moved to show where they were supposed to go, and then once it got to where they were supposed to go, it hovered there in place. Now, again, this is not truth, this is not fact, and this is just my interpretation. I mean, to me, it makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about one other thing. When it comes down here, and, they followed the star, and they go witness the birth, and of course, it says it went before them, and then it stood over where the young child was. So it moved. This is the reason why, this wasn't a star. And even if it was a comet only moves, so fast and in a certain direction, and it doesn't hover over an area. So this was more than likely a UFO. Okay, but here's where I want to come into. Matthew 2:11. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Okay. As gifts, and as fairly valuable gifts, these were. I mean, gold, of course, we all know that's. But frankincense and myrrh, well, one of the things that you have to understand is certain things can only be gotten in the East, in essentially the Orient, and so these would have been very valuable trade commodities. But I'm going to suggest that these things weren't just gifts. Now, they were still given, but these weren't just gifts. If these magi didn't believe in reincarnation, or even if they did, they had to have some way to figure out that this newborn child was in fact the reincarnation of Zoroaster. Now, even today, when the Dalai Lama is, needing to be replaced, and, the Buddhists believe in reincarnation, they do a test. They have several objects, and one of these objects happens to belong to, and it was probably a favorite possession of, the previous Lama. So they present these to the prospective individual, the one that is believed to be the reincarnation, and if this child chooses that item, they believe that that is the test, that is passing the test, that this is the reincarnation. So, what if these gifts weren't just gifts, but they were part of a test? Now, what that test would have been, I don't know. I don't know enough. I mean, we don't know enough about Zoroaster to really, understand what that could have been for. But it still could have been a test, something that would give them, affirmation that this was the rebirth of Zoroaster. But that's the greatest story never told. Now, there are a lot of scholars and those that study the Bible and everything. They realize that, yes, more than likely, the wise men were magi. And, of course, it doesn't even say three. We three kings, it doesn't say three. There could have been more. The reason why they go with the three kings is because it only says of the three gifts. Again, there could have been more, but those were probably the three most valuable, and that would have been, seen as, well, those are the most important. All the others were just trinkets or whatever, and didn't make, it was not something that should be worried about. So, with the Magi being priests of Zoroaster, and with Jesus being the next incarnation after Zoroaster, that's where it would make sense that these wise men came to witness the birth of Jesus. I'm the Anunnaki theorist. Enjoy.